Call this February 14th regular council meeting to order. At this time, can we call on Simon for the national anthem?
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on God for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on God for thee.
We'll now go to our land acknowledgement. Niagara region is situated on treaty land. The land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Port Colborne stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. There are two proclamations, Council. If I could have Councillors Bodner and Hoyle move Doctors with a Heart Day for February the 15th and Heritage Week, February 20th to the 26th of 2023. Any questions with regards to those proclamations? All in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. And if I could have Councillors Danch and Beauregard move the agenda. I am going to move up item number 10. Once we approve the minutes, I'll go to from 7 to 10 because we have a presentation. Any questions on the agenda or changes other than what I've asked? All in favor? That's carried. For tonight's meeting, are there any disclosures of interest? And if I can have Councillors Bruno and Bagu move the regular meeting of Council minutes, January the 24th of 2023. Are there any questions with regards to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. And now I'll be joined at the podium for a presentation. Great, thank you, Stephanie. So Chief Administrative Officer Scott Louie and the Director of Museum and Culture, Stephanie Baswick, and I announced the launch of the Award of Excellence for the Department of Museum and Culture. I'm so proud to announce the first recipient of the award is Bonnie Johnson. Bonnie has served as the longest standing board member of a committee of council in the history of the municipality, celebrating her 40th year on the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum Board of Management this December. Bonnie has always been regarded as a strong leader who inspires staff and fellow board members to always make decisions in keeping with the museum's mandate to serve and preserve. Since she has been on the board, she has witnessed the expansion of the site from a museum, carriage house, tea room, log schoolhouse, and log house to include a blacksmith shop, heritage resource center, to store over 22,000 artifacts, a heritage research archives, a pavilion, a lifeboat, a marine exhibit lighthouse, a timber cabin, and a large ship propeller. Over the 40 years, Bonnie has adapted to the revolution of technologies, from the handwritten board meeting notes to online Teams meetings. She's attended more than 120 annual events with a friendly smile and a warm demeanor. She has donated funds, artifacts, and archives, completed an oral history, and contributed significantly to the City of Port Colborne in her role as a volunteer here and throughout the municipality. This contribution to the heritage of the City of Port Colborne does not end with her time on the board. Bonnie will continue to volunteer and be a part of the Museum Auxiliary, an organization she helped found in 1978. I was in high school. Bonnie would know that. As most of you know, the Museum Auxiliary was formed to manage a volunteer-run Edwardian tea room called Arabella's Tea Room, and provides the citizens of Port Colborne, as well as the visitors to our community, a unique opportunity to enjoy the pleasures of afternoon tea. I cannot even calculate how many biscuits Bonnie has baked, or tablecloths ironed, or hours she has sat planning special events and working alongside other hardworking volunteers to meet all the challenges that have presented for almost 45 years. We are glad to be able to have Bonnie continue to be an impact through her service to Arabella's. One of the events that Bonnie notes as most remarkable in the last 40 years, not puddings, Councillor Bruno, is the repatriation of the Neff steam buggy. The 1901 Neff steam buggy, the oldest existing Ontario-made automobile, as well as arguably the second oldest existing Canadian automobile, was built by Benton Neff at his Neff Foundry and Machine Shop located in Humberston, eventually which was incorporated with Port Colborne. The first voyage occurred on September the 8th of 1901, when the 4.5 horsepower buggy was steered some 60 miles around the area. No, Bonnie didn't ride in it then. But Bonnie was proud to be a board member who secured the donation of the Neff steam buggy to the Port Colborne Historical Marine Museum in 2001, and was thrilled to be present the day it returned home on its 100-year anniversary to be showcased and remembered. It is with great appreciation for Bonnie's excellent service to the City of Port Colborne through the Museum Board of Management and her continued work with Arabella's Tea Room that we present this Award of Excellence on behalf of not only Council but all the citizens of Port Colborne. Bonnie, come on up. Let's go.
Follow the mayor.
You're facing this lady here. She'll take
You
it.
like your flowers? Oh yeah, the podium, that's good. Yeah. We got lots for you. That's lovely. Great, thank you. Thank you, Worship.
Great. Just the Award of Excellence presented by the Department of Museum and Culture, City of Port Colborne, to Bonnie Johnson for her outstanding commitment to the preservation of heritage, 40 years of service to the Museum Board of Management, and 45 years of dedication to Arabella's Tea Room, December 2022.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Nice bouquet.
And we have a beautiful gift from Peter Bergunis, hourglass artist on Highway 3, Humberston. For you. What? You came over?
Yeah.
Welcome, it's yours. Would you like to put it right here?
Let's see what I'm going to take.
Save that.
Okay, we'll be your assistant. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you, Stephanie, and again, thank you, Bonnie. For those that are watching, we're just waiting for the room to clear of our museum people. Okay, council, so we have the following reports and correspondence items that are pulled for this evening: 8.1, 8.3, 8.4, 9.1, 9.2, 9.8, and 9.9. Are there any further items? Seeing none, if I could have Councillor Beauregard and Aquilina move the items that haven't been pulled. All those in favor? That's carried. There are no delegations this evening. And we'll get into the mayor's report. I do have a lengthy mayor's report this evening. Lots was happening on the weekend, and we also want to talk about healthcare in Port Colborne. If you can believe it, we're already halfway through February, and it's been a busy few weeks since we were last together. There continues to be lots happening in the community, including some changes to hospital and healthcare services in Port Colborne and our surrounding areas. As we all know, healthcare across our province is experiencing a transformation, and we're already starting to see the effects of some of these changes. I know Niagara Health is working hard to deliver the safest and most effective healthcare for residents across Niagara. We are working closely with them, other municipalities in the region, and elected officials at the provincial level to make certain that the residents of Port Colborne continue to have access to safe, quality healthcare services. You may have seen in the media that Niagara Health is planning to make some changes to their healthcare delivery model, and some of these are coming as soon as the end of the month. This will include a modification to the services offered in Welland, which is the closest full hospital and emergency department to Port Colborne. As of February the 27th, the Welland Hospital will not offer any operating room or surgical procedures outside of their regular business hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. All patients with urgent surgical needs that come in on the evenings and weekends will need to go to the St. Catharines or Niagara Falls hospitals for treatment. I strongly believe that it's very important for our residents to continue to have easy access to a full emergency department with intensive care and surgical units running at full capacity. Senior staff and I have attended several meetings recently with mayors of Welland, Wainfleet, and Fort Erie, and with elected members of Provincial Parliament, MPP Jeff Birch and MPP Sam Oosterhoff. I also have an upcoming meeting with the Ontario Minister of Health, Sylvia Jones, and will continue working on behalf of our community to ensure these vital hospital services are not lost. That being said, at this time, the Port Colborne Urgent Care Centre will remain open for all non-emergency treatment for injuries or illness like sprains or strains and minor cuts or burns. I understand that our Urgent Care Centre will remain open until the new Niagara Falls Hospital opens sometime in 2028. This planned closure means that we need to do everything we can to ensure services in Welland continue at full capacity so our residents can access them as needed. This is an important issue, and as such, it's vital that we focus on the facts and don't spend any time on rhetoric or spreading misinformation. Last year, the Port Colborne Urgent Care Centre had almost 17,000 visits, and the Fort Erie Urgent Care Centre had more than 13,000 visits. Combined, these 30,000 visits need to be accommodated somewhere. Residents of South Niagara have come to rely on our urgent care centres, and we cannot lose this resource. In addition to continuing to meet with elected officials to discuss this matter, we will continue working to bring more community-based healthcare resources to Port Colborne. Since 2019, we have worked with healthcare providers to bring in services such as Pathstone Mental Health, discussions with Hospice Niagara, and other similar community health agencies. We've also worked with the province to bring in new physicians through regional physician recruitment efforts. We're beginning to see more mobile health services as well, including the things that we've seen for a while, such as mobile dental clinic and mobile mammograms. We will continue pursuing these community-based services for our community. There will be more to come on this issue, and I'm committed to making sure everyone continues to be updated and well informed, since it is so important to our residents and our community. Some sad news for the Bank of Montreal customers in Port Colborne. Our local BMO branch on the West Side Road will be closing. This is tough news for members of our community who rely on this branch. The nearest BMO branch will now be located at the Suez Mall in Welland. That's the notes my staff gave me. So for those that are at BMO, and you don't want to go to COA Mall, which is the north end of Welland, we have many banks in our downtown core that would love your business. Quite frankly, I'm really upset at BMO. This is the second time they've done this. They originally took their branch out of here and put a kiosk at the Food Basics. I was a city councilor, served on city council at that time. I was able to speak to some of their vice presidents at an event I was at, and they brought the branch back. And that was at the urgence of many businesses that at that time within Port Colborne. But now they want to leave again, which quite frankly upsets our staff, our residents, and those that visit Port Colborne that do deal with Bank of Montreal. But for ease of doing business, instead of driving to Welland, please visit one of our local branches of our banks or credit unions that are in the downtown core. Now for some happier and fun times and news. We celebrated Sports Fest last weekend after a few years hiatus. Many of the activities reported record attendance, and we had a great weekend full of sports and activities for all ages and interests. Proceeds from various events were donated to the Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services Fire Prevention Program, Light of Day Foundation, and Special Olympics Ontario. I've always enjoyed Sports Fest and had a great time participating in the Mayor's Cup Invitational Hockey Tournament. This year, the Port Frontenac won the A Division, Pelham won the B Division, Haldeman won the D Division. Port Colborne's team lost in a shootout after blowing a 3-0 lead with 2 minutes left to the Niagara Region Wastewater Department. It was a phenomenal game. Port Colborne went 3-0 with 2 shutouts, but unfortunately the boys couldn't last the full game. But you got to give it to the region. They really pounded us for the last 5 minutes of the second period. There was only 2 periods in the game, and it was a tough loss. So Tommy and I took it hard as coaches. I did play Friday night, but with all the events going on, I was only able to coach on Saturday and Sunday. But I do thank the guys from Port Colborne that we put in a great team. But all 16 teams that were involved in Sports Fest Mayor's Cup from all across Ontario, we had teams as far away as Halton. They had a great time. They love Port Colborne. So we look forward to getting back in the win column next year as far as championships go, because we were the defending champion. We also welcomed 9 new members into the Port Colborne Sports Wall of Fame, and this event was very well attended. You can see the new plaques on the wall along the walking track next time you're at the Valley Health and Wellness Center. The Polar Plunge raised more than $15,000 for Special Olympics Ontario. About 40 plungers participated this year. For those who didn't get an opportunity to donate but still want to contribute to Special Olympics, the Polar Plunge donation page will remain open for a few more days. And as always, we're grateful for the support of the community groups and local businesses that help bring Sports Fest to life. Another highlight from the weekend was the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Valley Health and Wellness Center. The event was very well attended, and it was great to welcome MP Vance Badaway, who was a former mayor, and many other familiar faces to mark the anniversary. We enjoyed live music, food, interactive games for the kids, and a series of highlights from the past decade. The Valley Health and Wellness Center is a hub of Port Colborne and offers something for everyone. It's fully accessible for sport, recreation, health, wellness, entertainment, commerce, and more. If you weren't able to join in on the celebration this weekend, I encourage you to stop by soon. And a huge congratulations to the cast and crew of the Port Colborne Operatic Society, who on Saturday evening opened their 76th production, a Rodgers and Hammerstein production of Cinderella. Founded in 1945, the Operatic Society devotes months of effort and energy into every production. The musical this year is being staged in Centennial Auditorium in Welland, as the theater at Lakeshore Catholic High School is not completely refurbished from the small fire they had. And we are so proud of all the volunteer members of the Operatic Society for their commitment to the arts and for their support of young people pursuing careers in the arts. That brings an end to my mayor's report. Are there any questions? Great, thank you. Our regional councillor is not here this evening. Does anyone have any regional issues that you want me to take forward? If not, email myself or Fred at any time, please. Great, thank you. Consideration of items requiring separate discussion. 8.1, just bear with me, I'll pull that up, guys. (8.1) is the Waterfront Center project update. The recommendation is that Chief Administrative Officer, Economic Development and Tourism Division Report 2023-03 be received. That the Mayor and Acting City Clerk be authorized to execute and amend the agreement for the Federal Development Agency for Southern Ontario, FedDev Ontario, to receive a 1-year extension to the Canada Community Revitalization Fund, and that the Mayor and Acting City Clerk be authorized to execute any further amendments to the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. Oh, I do apologize. Yes, I jumped ahead. I was trying to shorten the evening so we could all get home to our better halves. I do, yeah. Sorry. I thought I'd get away with it this evening, guys. See, none of you found it. It was the clerk that had to remind me. I apologize. Staff remarks. Staff that's here, any remarks? Mr. Long.
Good evening, Council. Through you, Your Worship. Just a reminder to Council and the community that we are asking for resident input to help with the development of the 2023 to 2026 strategic plan by completing a survey. That survey is the city's website. We also have hard copies here at City Hall and at the library. Staff have also dropped copies off at some apartment buildings. We also dropped a bunch off at Portal Village today. We're getting assistance from the Communications Division to promote the survey through social media. We also have some advertisements in the local newspapers. The response that we have been getting to date is very positive, but we'd love to see more residents provide their thoughts in the community survey. And for those who participate, your name goes into a draw for a gift certificate. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you. Further staff, anything? Mr. Cotton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Economic Development Department, in partnership with Niagara Falls Small Business Enterprise Center and Venture Niagara, is pleased to host the first of several free in-person workshops for small businesses in Port Colborne and surrounding area, how to start, fund, and grow a business. Port Colborne Edition is ideal for anyone who has business ideas in the process of starting a small business or has an existing small business they're trying to grow. Sign up and position yourself for success. This will be happening Thursday, February 16th, 10 to 1 at the L.R. Wilson Heritage Research Archives, and can be so far we have 20 committed individuals out of 25 seats. So that'll be happening on Thursday, and anyone in the public that's interested, you can email City Hall, and we can get back to you on the sign-up details. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cotton, you're going to be here for the meeting? Full meeting? Okay. Don't leave without me talking to you when we're done. I need to speak to you, and Gary and Brian. It's not another issue. No more staff. Acting CAO.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, just a quick note. The CAO of one apologizes that he couldn't attend tonight, but I get to introduce somebody to you all, our new manager of corporate communications. But maybe before I do that, first, I think many of us know, and we owe a great thanks to our acting corporate communications manager over the last couple of months. Cheyenne Stevens, by day, her normal job is creative service coordinator in the marketing, or I said that wrong, right? It's not the marketing, it's corporate communications group, in the corporate communications group, but by day and night for the last couple of months, she was also the acting manager of corporate communications, and I think everybody throughout the city and staff would like to just say a big thank you to her for the great work she's done, and then to introduce this equally amazing person that's going to be coming on board, and she's here tonight in front of us, and I don't know if the camera gets to pick her up so the public gets to say hi to her as well, but Jasmine Peasel-Graham is joining us as our new manager of corporate communications. She brings a ton of experience, having spent the last week with her just so looking forward to working with her, and I know the corporate leadership team across the city has had the opportunity too. So welcome to the city, and I hope you enjoy our council meeting tonight, and we look forward to working with you in the coming days and years.
Want to say anything? No? Welcome. We've already welcomed you because you've been here a week. Right into the fire, too. Okay, so no more staff then? Great. I'll go to council. This time I'll start on my right. Councilor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple updates. One in terms of the Shirkston Community Center. They hosted the first Valentine's Day dance for grade 7 and 8s on February 10th. They did that. My daughter and 5 of her friends joined, and they had a turnout of approximately 94 students. So good turnout for them, and they are going to continue with that. They're also hosting Pancake Tuesday on February 21st, if anybody's interested in attending that. One item I would like to raise to the Director of Public Works is in regards to the Barris Drain. On February 21st, or February 1st, sorry, Alana Vanderveen, the drainage superintendent, and I attended a resident's home on Wildwood, and there was approximately 22 residents that attended, where Mrs. Vanderveen did a great job of explaining steps forward in terms of putting in a floodgate. And so I'm wondering if it's possible to have a meeting for the watershed here at council chambers in the future for that.
Steve?
Through you, your worship, we can do that. We would schedule that out for the end of March, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, perfect. And that's everything. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Councilor Borgard?
Through your worship, last weekend I had the pleasure of observing Sports Fest and watching our Colborne team play along with some fellow councillors, and the celebrations of the anniversary for the Valley Health and Wellness. It was a nice event, and I really congratulate all those who got inducted into the Sports Wall of Fame. And I do also congratulate, even though we lost in the finals, but the hockey team, they did really well, and that goalie was, our goalie was pretty good. I'll say that. So, thank you.
I know you weren't a healthy scratch. It was a upper body injury that you couldn't play for us, but we could have used you. Councilor Baggio.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm good.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bruno.
Yes, Your Worship, just one, and it may be more for the public's edification. I found out today, I noticed, and I don't know if other councillors have, the intersection of King and Main Street always seems wet. And I thought it might be flushing of a main because they had done some work just west of that. But I noticed, and maybe through you to Darlene, can that be, I don't know if that can be put out through, if it has, I missed it through corporate communications about the leak there. I had, after I left the message for you, I had 3 calls this afternoon on my cell phone wondering why is the intersection of Main and King Street wet for the last 3 or 4 days. So I don't know if you could maybe explain what it is and what's happening.
Darlene?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bruno. There is another water main break has occurred at the just south of the intersection of Main, and our staff have scheduled to do the repair actually tomorrow evening. They have a contractor coming in. It's actually a very challenging area to do repairs in because it's busy and there's a shallow rock. So I know our corporate communications officer has a news release going out tomorrow, advising everyone of the road closure and the activities happening overnight tomorrow night.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Darlene. Councillor Elliott? You're all set? Councillor Danch?
Been looked after, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hoyle?
I have a few items I'd like
Microphone? Your microphone?
Rookie. I have a few items. One is for Director of Public Works. I've had a lot of phone calls about both Clyley Street East and Durham Street. If we can put it in the loop for the radar, because there's not only regular vehicles, there's also recreational vehicles just flying down those streets. So I've had a bunch of phone calls. Besides that, we had a meeting, the Port Colborne Wainfleet Chamber of Commerce, and we have, I just let you know, a couple events that are coming up. One was already mentioned for February 16th, how to start, fund, and grow a business. It's in Port Colborne. Another one is March 3rd, International Women's Day, Buffalo Canoe Club, Fort Erie. Another one that they're bringing back, June 16th, Lobster and Laughs. And last, the annual golf tournament, September 11th. And then also this weekend, if anyone has time, go to the arena. Starting Saturday at 9 a.m. for the next 3 days, there'll be 500 female hockey players playing in the tournament. So show your support. We'll take up 3 days of hockey.
That's a Port Colborne Wave sponsored tournament, Councillor?
That is a Port Colborne Wave tournament.
Beautiful. Great to hear.
And that's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Steve. I noticed that they're doing a bunch of trail brushing and tree removal. The section that I've noticed is between Silver Bay Road and Cedar Bay Road, and it's pretty extensive. Can you give us kind of a thought process on that, and then maybe I'll come back with some ideas too. Thank you.
Mr. Shapowski.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Bodnar. So we do have some work being completed along the Friendship Trail right now between Cedar Bay and Wildwood. The work consists of brushing, which is going to be followed by ditching too. So this is to start some ditching programs. So the first step of that is actually brushing the areas so that we can see what's happening underneath, and then we can start ditching from that point. There are remediation efforts that are going to happen. So there are going to be trees and shrubs that are planted along that trail to kind of give it a more naturalized feel again once that ditching is completed. And this is also going to tie into the beautification of the actual entrances to all of our trail networks. So we are working on putting new signage. There will be new treed entrances that don't impede sight lines as some of them do right now. And we'll also be putting some fixtures out there too, benches, garbage cans, stuff the like.
Councillor?
That's good to hear, because it kind of looks like a bomb went off in there now. Everything is cleared. It's just massacred. But I understand you got to do that to get at the ditching and then bring back something. So it'll be great to see it all rejuvenated at some point. And just so when people are on there, they know what's going on, and we're not going to leave it like that, right? Okay, thank you very much. And just an announcement, Churchton Community Centers having their annual chili cook-off, Sunday, March 12th, serving at 5:30 p.m. It's $10 admission to get in. And if you want to enter your chili in the contest, then there'll be, I know you've been there, Mr. Mayor, a dozen chilies at least, maybe more. You can call Mike at 894-0191. Pretty sure that's 91. To register your chili to get in there, and I'm sure they'll have a limit on how many they'll take. So, and I see there was a challenge put out by the United Church. They've won that contest quite a few times, so they put a challenge out to other churches if they want to take them on in this chili contest. So just throwing that out there. And I think that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Now, consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Okay. So it's the report is 2023-03. Recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer, Economic Development and Tourism Division Report 2023-03 be received. That the Mayor and Acting City Clerk be authorized to execute an amended agreement with the Federal Development Agency for Southern Ontario, FedDev Ontario, to receive a one-year extension for the Canada Community Revitalization Fund, and that the Mayor and Acting City Clerk be authorized to execute any further amendments to the Canada Community Revitalization Fund agreement. Mr. Long and Mr. Higginbotham are going to give us the presentation. Okay, welcome.
Through you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. The City of Port Colborne has something that most Canadian cities and towns do not have, but would love to have, and that's waterfront. We have waterfront. We have Lake Erie. We have the third largest marina in Ontario. We have some of Ontario's finest beaches. We have a canal that runs through the middle of our city, which is also a gateway to international markets. Staff are of the opinion that we are at a unique moment in the city's history where council, staff, and the community have an opportunity to create a new vision, a new plan, a new master plan for our waterfront. That vision, that plan is going to create more economic activity, more cultural activity, more tourism activity. It's also going to help attract public sector and private sector investment. And we saw that recently back in January, where the mayor and our MP and others were part of a federal funding announcement where the federal government is investing $22 million towards a $45 million wharf rehabilitation project. So the presentation tonight is, I would say, less about a waterfront center and more about the future of our waterfront and recognizing the value and the potential of our waterfront and creating a process where we can have a meaningful conversation with the community as to what we'd like our waterfront to look like and what we'd like it to be for today, but also for future generations. I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Okay.
You're up.
Thank you. Okay, we can go into the next slide, please. So I want to start off by saying that that up until now it's been a very positive experience collaborating with everyone that makes up our project team. From day one, they've been very committed to and very supportive of this journey that we've been on to for Port Colborne to revitalize its waterfront and better connect this prized asset that we have to historic West Street, to our downtown, and to the Marina District. So I'd like this evening for everyone, and that includes the public that's watching from home or wherever they may be, to share our excitement for the future of Port Colborne's waterfront. Next slide, please. What we have here is an area of Port Colborne that faces the canal and is less than a kilometer from the opening of the canal into Lake Erie. It's not an area that you would find in just any other community in Canada or North America. If you ask anybody what makes this area so special, it's location, 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 right there on the water. And properties on the water naturally are more valuable than those that are surrounded by land on four sides. So from this standpoint, the properties that make up the area for this project are prime waterfront lands. It may not have been obvious to Public Works at the time how lucky they were to operate from 11 King Street for more than 50 years, but when they moved to the new operations center in 2017, and you fast forward to the spring and summer of 2021, it couldn't have been more clear to us in economic development and tourism that opportunity was knocking on our door. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? As for the characteristics of the site, we do have Wharf 18.1, which is in a fenced-in gravel area that is owned federally by Transport Canada, and that's where ships entering or exiting the canal will dock. There's also West Pier Marine. We've noted that there were a couple of pump houses, one right along the water's edge and another facing King Street. And then, of course, there's the Public Works building, Salt Dome, and yard to the south. So as you can see, the site comes with a full cast of characters, and each of them with their own role to play in this story of waterfront redevelopment. Next slide, please. When our project team started to have regular discussions in the spring and summer of 2021 about this site and this future, we started to think broadly in the beginning, taking pieces from here and there and fitting them together to see what clicks. Before we then started to narrow things down to 5 key areas of focus. Those are the things that you see there. And the bottom line for us was that we wanted to see this area reach its full potential. And to do that, we had to be very laser focused in what we were trying to accomplish and push through the process of getting there. Next slide, please. The reason we decided to show you this visual here with property lines is because it helps to put into perspective that we're not dealing with one contiguous or continuous piece or parcel of land. Much of it is federal land that's been entrusted to the Seaway to manage, and on behalf of Transport Canada, and the lines splitting up the 10 parcels indicate properties that are leased to different entities, one of which is the city. Of course, seeing that Public Works worked out of 11 King Street since the 1960s. Next slide, please. For our project team and for others to see the big picture, we set the goal of cleaning up the site and getting it ready for the next chapter. And whenever anything gets demolished, it always seems to bring out a captive audience. So we were really excited at the prospect of seeing things like the water tower, the pump houses, and the public works structures get demolished, because it gave us a chance to visualize the possibilities and keep the ideas that we had flowing. Next slide. In the time since receiving the $750,000 CCRF grant, and on the bottom there we have a photo of MP Vance Badaway making the announcement in August of 2021, our project team has been working diligently to take the preliminary concept design for a waterfront center and move it through the site development planning process with expert guidance from our architects at JP Thompson Architects. Next slide, please. As communities everywhere, including Port Colborne, started climbing back from the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic, our team, Gary and I, we never lost sight of the direction that council gave us, which was to keep the project's financial impact as low as possible. We looked at this as another goal that we had to achieve. Only this time, the adrenaline was pumping a little bit more than usual, because we had to chase after other grant opportunities and explore creative ways to finance the Waterfront Center. Unfortunately, though, the harder we pushed, the more challenging it became when we saw some of our funding applications not receive support, and then the effects of high interest rates and inflation grew. Next slide, please. On a positive note, this announcement on January 11th by the Transport Minister, Omar Al-Gabra, indicates that our city's waterfront is not going unnoticed. We're very fortunate to have the Seaway's support for the transformation we want to see take place at Wharf 18.1, and it's always been important to us to partner with them on discovering what we can accomplish together. Next slide. Where do we go from here? So with all of that being said, what does the next chapter for the Waterfront Center project look like? Next slide. It's back to fundamentals, or the project's original roots, maintaining that focus on the 5 key areas that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, and following these 6 guiding principles. We believe that by making these principles our first priority, we have a strong framework to work from and a unique opportunity to rescope this project and position it for success. Next slide, please. To get there, we need public engagement. So we have a choice to make this project successful, not by sitting back and complaining about the things we can't control, those roadblocks that we've experienced up until now, like high interest rates and inflation. But we can make this project successful by focusing on things that we can do well and improve for the better. That's where we need the public's help. Staff like me and Gary, we're making recommendations like that which is taking place tonight to serve Port Colborne's residents, its businesses, and its tourists. And by this, I mean that we're going forward, it's going to be very important for us to engage the community, to listen to them, and deliver on what they want, need, and value for something like this, whether that's a feeling they're hoping to get, an experience they're hoping to have, or something more than that. Next slide, please. And we're going to finish off with some timelines, because we do all of this on a timeline, and there's nothing we love more than a good deadline to push us into action. So this is what you see starting in the month of February of 2023, carrying us through into 1 year from now, February 2024. Next slide, please. We would like to conclude with some thoughts and a reminder on why it's important that we persevere through this project. We persist with waterfront redevelopment and revitalization, because achieving something great has never happened, has never come quickly, never come easily. But if we keep moving forward, eventually this journey that we're on for waterfront revitalization will lead towards a destination where everyone can look back and say, this was great for Port Colborne. That's it.
All set?
Yep.
Great, thanks. Before I go to questions, if I could have Councillors Bruno and Elliott move this to get it on the floor. I'll go to questions. I'm going to go to Councillor Bruno first. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Greg, Mr. Long, a great presentation. I really like the cadence to what you did. When I first sort of saw an excerpt in the local newspaper, and from what I've heard about the street, is that I think, I don't know that we got out in front of our skis too far with the center, but what I recall is, and perhaps you could see if I'm recanting this right, is when we first anticipated doing this, it was a very strong feeling at the council of the day to ensure that we would not go forward without a plan, and that we would not go forward based on property tax dollars. We would source all sources of funding, naming rights, et cetera, et cetera. So while I see this report is really interesting, because it is really at the crux of it about extending an agreement that we already have. But it's morphed into, I think, people focusing on what we all do, and that's the bright, shiny object, which is the center, the way it's been laid out. And so I think that I'm hoping that the public knows that the actual motion that happened at the end of the last term of council is still in play. That is, there was not going to be a center or more work done there unless the funding was there. And so really this isn't about the center not being built announcement. It's about the extent of extending the agreement. And I found it interesting because in hindsight, this reminds me of the Vail Center. So, I mean, I looked at it, I would love our focus to be going forward, to look at that whole site as it says in your plan. But really, it's whether it's a waterfront park or square or docklands or whatever it is, that before you put in the bright, shiny object, you got to get everything else right, including a plan. And so reverse quickly is the Thomas A. Lannon complex was built with all the stuff you see there now with a plan, except for the Vail Center. But somehow we've gotten out over making the center the focus as opposed to making the concept why people are going to come down there. And besides the cruise ship, I mean, obviously it could be a lookout point, a park, it could be an extension of Canal Days with something at the end of the street. It could be a lot of things. And so I'm really pleased that you're going after the public opinion on this and other stakeholders, because I think in order to do this right from the beginning, I think we need not just the big picture plan, but also in parallel the funding plan. And so I don't even think we've touched the surface on naming rights, all that stuff. To sum up, I would just hope that when this plan gets developed, that because money may come in spurts and fits and jerks and all that kind of stuff, is that the center or the pavilion or whatever that is, for now just has a placeholder in that drawing, and that everything else then feeds to that. And the bright shiny object may or may not, but comes in at the end. And I think we've seen it. You see it at Nathan Phillips Square, right? You see it, you've seen it at Thomas A. Lannon. You see it all over the country where the crown jewel, per se, comes at the end. But I think that's a misnomer here because, you know, that center wharf getting off point for people in the cruise ship is, you know, that's 66 boats times 2 a day. There's the whole year down there. But more importantly, there's all the citizens of Port Colborne that I think are really going to use that park. I think there'll be as much or more use by the residents of Port Colborne and the visitors to Port Colborne for other reasons. Because if you think about it, from a time perspective, the amount of time that a ship's going to be there kind of dwarfs when you put it under, you know, the denominator of 365 days. So, well done in the process. Glad we're looking at it from a holistic approach. Really pleased with this presentation because I think it actually lays it out in the order perhaps it should have been at the beginning, but to no fault of our own. I think we're in a really good place here. And when you start peeling back what was there and the demolition, you start seeing it come together. And I can't help but think with the government of Canada investing $22 million on the wharf nearby, these buildings down, there'll be opportunities to finish this. But we've done in the last 2 or 3 decades some other buildings where the building went in first, and it has cost us money to, I'm thinking basically of the marina and what happened there. It was a rush to do it, and rush gets it there. And cuts ribbons, but quick isn't always all it's cracked up to be. So just wanted to say, well done. Really like this approach. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. And I will apologize if these questions have been asked before. As new back to council, this is the first opportunity I've had to ask questions and publicly. So bear with me if you've answered them 100 times before. Just with regards to the slide that shows the property lines, have we acquired all those properties, or have we agreements with property owners to improve those lands?
Gary or Greg?
Yeah, so most of those properties, through your worship to Councillor Elliott, as I indicated in my presentation, we are looking at 10 properties there in total, and most of them, with the exception of one property, is under lease. You would have to have a lease arrangement with the Seaway. About half of those properties are under lease by the city with the Seaway. And so acquiring those properties would not be something that that could take place unless, of course, the federal government through the Seaway was interested in divesting those lands and putting them up for sale.
Okay, so I will say acquire as in the right to use them. I guess if that's what you're saying. We've actually acquired the lease for them, so we do have the ability to build whatever we want to build on those lands with permission from the Seaway. I would assume that they're partnering with us on what we want to do, and we have to run pretty much everything past them for their permission to do everything? Does that sound about right?
Yes, through your
Okay.
worship to Councillor Elliott. Yes,
Okay.
we would look back at the original lease agreements, and we would see what those lease agreements permit to take place on those properties, and if the new activities taking place on those properties were different from what's laid out in the lease agreements, we would enter into negotiations with the Seaway to have them reevaluate the lease agreements and perhaps create new lease agreements under the terms of the activities we want to use that land for.
Just a couple more. On the slide that is direction and challenges, on the financial side, high inflation and interest rates and economic uncertainty. I would assume that high inflation and interest rates would come from the fact that we may have to debenture some of the cost of what we're doing. So we're going to scale things, and not just with the center, but with the entire project itself. I'll just ask.
You want to answer that, Brian? Sure. Acting CAO?
Through the mayor to the councillor and council, I can give my best shot on that. Great working group working on it. The reality is, I think when this project was originally started off, there was the goals to bring in a number of grants. A couple of the grants, we weren't sure about the timing of those grants, so there was most likely going to be the requirement to do some temporary borrowing at some different times. And as certain grants became unavailable, the potential to have to borrow more grew. And as interest rates grew, the total cost of the project became more than, I think, what was viewed in the business case to be able to be self-sustaining. And council gave us a very strong mandate that if we're going to continue on with anything larger on the property, it needed to be self-sustaining and self-funding. So there's no doubt an unfortunate situation on this one. Interest rates and both inflation were going the wrong way at the current time. But I know, I guess I'll put it another way, working with the presenters as they go through the project and try to refocus, I think the project, what council may find is new opportunities for different funding opportunities will open up, and council will have to entertain those at a different time. It's just the set of circumstances that existed originally just didn't come out conducive to meeting the no taxpayer hit.
Okay. And one final question. I guess it's been repeated often. We're thankful that the federal government and the Seaway are on record as saying they're going to invest several millions of dollars on Wharf 18.1, 2, and 18.1, 0.2, 0.3. My question is, after the rehabilitation is finished, what do those docks become? Do they become put back in play for the Seaway to dock Lakers on? Are they going to have a layout yard or, I'll say, bulk commodities that sit on shore or things like that? Or is it specifically to rehabilitate the wharf for cruise ships and I guess to stabilize the wall for any venture that we may put forth?
Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor, I think all of the possibilities, I think, is what the Seaway envisions. we're not prepared to speak for the Seaway, but based on the conversations we have had with the Seaway, the mayor can chime in if he would like, but the Seaway wants to reactivate those parcels. In fact, we understand that they are working with some tenants, some industrial marine tenants who have expressed an interest in reactivating those lands once the wharfs have been rehabilitated. From a city's perspective, we aren't interested in the wharf rehabilitation project for our cruise ship initiative and having the longer cruise ships that are close to 700 feet dock on the west side. So we're interested in that, but I think the Seaway is really focused on activating those sites with industrial marine. In fact, I think they're getting inquiries already.
Okay. And just one last final question, and then if you want to add to.
Sure.
Have they specified any start date for this project, or is this kind of up in the air right now for them?
Nope, 2023 is the engineering and design. 2024 is the initial time frame to start construction or reconstruction, finished by 2026. Yeah, and just on your other question, the Seaway does have a plan together. They do have a tenant on a portion of that, of those wharfs now, a local tenant, but they do have a plan moving forward. You're going to see that commodities aren't put on the docks like they used to be. Things are changing, so you might see more buildings there and warehousing, that type of thing, domes where they store, say, sand in a dome as opposed to just on a dock. So, correct.
Sorry, so through your
Correct.
So it's contained instead of blowing all over everybody's property.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
okay.
So they've had some conceptual drawings that we actually presented to the province, and with working with the province on their new marine initiative, with MPP Grewal, who's the PA to the Minister of Transportation in Ontario. The federal government's also seen those plans. They actually had them the day they announced the $22.7 million that they're investing. The province is very interested in this program, in this whole venture. They like what we're looking at. This is a real team effort between the City of Port Colborne and the St. Lawrence Seaway Authority. They see that area as more of a, as Councillor Bruno said, like that park-like dockland setting along with a working canal. The big thing about this is this wharf can handle up to 3 Lakers. So, this winter we have 7 ships within Port Colborne. We have 1 at our dock, which is at the elevator, which is what we lease. McKeel Marine has a ship there, plus what everybody sees in town. Every one of those ships is busy being repaired, winter maintenance. That's a lot of people that are coming into Port Colborne using our restaurants, stores, whatever else needs to be done with those the jobs that are created there, plus our own business, Allied Marine, which is doing a lot of work on those ships. We can go back to that on this dock in the wintertime. You can get up to 2 to 3 ships on that dock. So, quite frankly, the day after that announcement, my office received 2 calls, one from an out-of-town developer that wants to sit down with the Seaway and ourselves, which is happening, Gary, in the next couple of weeks. And we also had a call from a current business within the City of Port Colborne that's looking to maybe expand to that area. And again, we're mitigating that conversation with the St. Lawrence Seaway Authority. So a lot of people are looking at what's going on in Port Colborne. When I attended the Marine Conference a couple weeks ago, it was the buzz of the room. Everywhere I went, people talked to me about what's going on in Port Colborne. Everybody in the marine industry knew about the announcement, knew about the wharf being rehabilitated, and quite frankly, talked about what may happen there and what can happen, not just in the City of Port Colborne, but quite frankly from St. Catharines down to Port Colborne along the canal as the marine industry is reinvigorated for this area. Great, thank you. Councillor Baggio?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great presentation, Greg. I appreciate it. It's the first time I think you've had a presentation in front of council that I remember, and excellent job. I do appreciate the support, Councillor Bruno's comments regarding the docks, and just a couple of questions. You mentioned in there September 23 is going to be the first phase of site remediation. What's that mean?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Bagu. So we are working with an environmental consultant. We have been since the start of this project to do environmental investigations and come up with reports through phase 1 and phase 2 environmental studies. And so we are currently, actually, it's sitting on my desk as we speak, have reports for 150-page reports for each individual parcel where these environmental investigations have been conducted. And with those results, we work with our consultant to formulate a remediation plan. And it is within our timeline that we would like to take the results and that remediation plan and start the work this September.
Okay. Thank you. To you, Mr. Mayor. I guess Mr. Longer, the funding ratio, a realistic best scenario, I guess I'm looking for. I've looked at other welcome areas within Canada, and I find the most realistic one I could find was 1/3 funded by the municipality, 1/3 by the province, and 1/3 by the federal government. Is that, in your opinion, our best case scenario for funding?
Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor. That is a funding model that I don't think we would want to turn down if an opportunity from the province or the federal government presented itself. As this council has talked about, the mandate that staff have received is that we want to minimize the impact of this project on the tax levy. But I think we want to be open-minded to any and all funding possibilities and partnerships with the senior levels of government. We're fortunate and thankful to have that federal funding, which provided $750,000. And that has allowed the city to do a lot of site work and survey work and environmental work. Now, that required a small contribution from the city of $250,000. So that ratio on that example is a little bit different. I know that, and council may recall, that we had an application into a provincial fund a couple of years ago. I forget the percentage, but I know the province was seeking a municipal contribution as part of a bigger project cost. So I guess what I'm saying is I think we want to be open-minded to the possibilities. And I think, to your point, councillor, we may get to that point down the road where we have a project that is checking off all the boxes in Ottawa and at Queen's Park, but we may have to look at what the municipal contribution has to be in order to participate in those projects, or in those funding envelopes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Beauregard?
Through your worship to Mr. Higginbottom. So we were, as you were saying, Mr. Long, that we have $750,000 as part of this grant. Is it a condition of the grant that it be spent in full, like the full amount, $750,000 by the end of the agreement? Is that a requirement? Is that a condition of the grant?
Yeah, through your worship to the councillor, it is in the agreement that we do fulfill the full amount of federal funding and municipal funding as agreed upon in that 75%, 25% split by this new extended deadline of March 31st, 2024. So the expectation, to answer your question, is that the money be spent in full.
Okay. Do we intend on using any of that money for potential remediation efforts? Would we potentially look for other grants so that $750,000 may be used for maybe other consultings or consultant firms or anything else that's required?
Yeah, through the mayor to your councillor, we do intend to use the remaining CCRF grant funds to put it towards remediation. But if it just so happens that another grant opportunity comes up that's a better fit with a remediation project, then we will look to redeploy those CCRF funds towards another component of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodnar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenters, or maybe back to you if you have the answer, but I'm fully supportive of this project. I think it's great. I like the direction it's going in. But I haven't heard that we will have the use of a dock for the cruise ships when they do come in. And I'll use the word exclusively for a cruise ship. I fully get the idea of Lakers being there and it's a business and, but what I wouldn't want to see is we develop all this and then all of a sudden there's so many Lakers there, we got to park the cruise ships on the other side. So do we have some kind of a thought process that the cruise ships will actually be able to use that dock? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. And the answer to that would be yes, because the cruise ships actually deal with the seaway with regards to docking. So when those schedules come out, Greg, in the late summer, early fall of each year for the next season,
Yes.
those go to the seaway. So they know that on August the 1st that the Viking is docking there at 8 in the morning or 10 at night or whatever it may be. So those are all done, just like they are now. We're not missing any docking on the Snyder dock with regards to Lakers or Salties coming in, and also a cruise ship coming in. So that's all worked out with the seaway. So yeah, there won't be. I mean, that dock is so it's thousands of feet long, like it's huge. So your smaller ships, which will start there this summer, at the foot of Sugarloaf at Dock 18-1, as Greg mentioned in his presentation. The Viking Octantis, the Viking Polaris, and the New Hamburg will continue on the Snyder dock and move over once the Wharf 18-2 is completed, and then 18-3 will be the last in 2026. So as we move through that, they'll move in and out of those areas, as well as you're going to have the Coast Guard ships that come in and dock there and all the other stuff. So, but those are all scheduled by the Seaway. So yeah, it's not like a ship shows up and says, my parking spot's gone. That doesn't happen. It's all preordained.
Okay, so I think that's important to get out to the public because I don't think we said that here tonight. So it's good to know that we're just not rolling the dice and hoping that when the cruise ship shows up, they'll be able to somehow sneak in between two Lakers or something. So,
yeah.
Okay, good.
Thanks. Great, thank you. Any further questions? Councilor Borgard.
Through your worship, maybe to you or staff. So part of the repairing of the wharf, does that include dredging to make it so that it's deeper in that area?
There could be some dredging depending on how much silt is in there.
Because it's my...
Traditionally that facility, except for 18-1, which is a little shallower than 18-2 and 3, has traditionally taken full Lakers. So they'll look at all that. They'll go down, so if there was 2 feet of silt and they needed 30 feet and there's 2 feet of silt to get them, they'll take the silt out.
Okay, because it was my understanding, and maybe staff can confirm, that the reason why there's not large cruise ships are parked on the other side or docking on the other side is because of the shallowness of the canal on the west side, but I'm not sure.
Only north of Sugarloaf.
Okay.
So south of Sugarloaf, you're 30, 35 feet. It gets deeper as you go up, but depending. So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then when you get to ADM's dock is, again, a full dock.
Okay.
Full deck.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further questions? Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen. 8.3 is Report 2023-20, recommendation that Development and Legislative Services Planning Division Report 2023 20 be received, and that the city's portion of the water main construction be funded from the water reserve, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and execute a water main construction agreement between the city and Grandstone Living Inc. attached as Appendix A for the replacement of the eastern limit of the Neff Street water main, and that the bylaw authorizing entering into the agreement with Grandstone Living Inc. be approved. If I could have Councillors Bruno and Elliott move that. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Your Worship. Either through you to either Steve or Darlene, probably Darlene. Just a few questions. Great report, great partnership to have the developer pay in an existing area to upgrade what is almost a 100-year-old water main. Doesn't get much better than that, and you get another apartment building there. I'm concerned about, and the mayor often has brought this up, and although we deviated it on Erie Street because it was necessary, and that was sort of smart rehab, or when you're doing a area, this is probably only about, what, 350 feet of roadway, but we're going to be digging that up to put a new water line in. I'm wondering, it doesn't deal with this in the report because it's not part of the agreement with Grandstone, but while we're there, or shortly thereafter, or certainly before we pave it over, will we be, so first question is, will we be doing a either reline or new construction of what I will say is about a 65-year-old wastewater line?
Ms. Stoddard?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno. We actually looked at the CCTV, the inspection records for the stormwater pipe and the sanitary pipe in the area, and they are currently both in great shape. So we have no plans to do any remediation at this time, but of course they'd be great candidates in the future for lining.
Oh, great. So it's in that good a shape it's in that good a shape that we can just potentially leave it and line it later. Similarly, everyone on this council over the last few years has known of the issue at the end of Neff Street there as it pertains to the stormwater outfall. And so I know there's been a lot of time, effort, and money being put forward to a permanent solution there. And I'm sure that that may not line up with this, but again, before any repaving, will we be able to, maybe that's more Steve than you, Darlene, I don't know, will that be completed in a timely fashion, and then the repaving could be looked at?
Steve?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Bruno. So we have contemplated looking at both construction efforts at the same time with the water main and the Neff Street outfall as well. They are two very different construction methods that would take place, so we are separating the two. There shouldn't be any asphalt work that's impacted from the Neff Street outfall other than equipment traveling over it. So we do want to be cognizant of that as well. And these projects will line up into a way that we will have asphalt, temporary asphalt works for the time being, that can be restored in the following years.
Great. And just a final question. 26 Neff Street, the last house on the south side there. And I'm not sure about the house on the south corner of Neff and King, if that feeds off of that Neff Street water line. But like Erie Street and that, with this being reconstructed, will we be putting new laterals to their property line? And will we offer that resident or two residents the ability to tap into the program to do their own private side of the lateral?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno. Yes, actually, we actually put that in the agreement with the developer that we will replace the water line to the property line like we do with all city projects. There's actually, the house right on the corner is actually fed from King, so it only affects one property on Neff besides the sixplex that the developer has built further down. And yes, we're going to be rolling out the letters for Davis Street because Davis Street's being constructed this year, and we'll include the property owner on Neff Street that's affected to see if they want to take advantage of the grant as well.
Excellent, thank you. That's all I have.
Great. The old Bruno estate.
The old Bruno homestead.
Yeah. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to, I guess, Director of Public Works and Darlene. When I first read the report, the first thing that popped into my mind was, we don't subsidize development, in that development should pay for itself. And the only reason that we're doing this work at this time is because this apartment building is going to go in. Why are we paying any of the cost to have this work done? And so I went back and forth and made a call to the Director of Public Works and said, like, what are we doing here? And then he was kind enough to fill me in that, yes, this pipe did need some work, but this is a unique situation. And I guess if you turn the funding around, at first it was, why are we subsidizing him? And then yet if you turn it around, it's he's subsidizing us to do some work that we may have needed to do in the not too distant future. So I can understand that. But on the face of it, when you take a cursory look at it, it looks like we're subsidizing development. And I don't want people to get that idea that if you're going to come into Port Colborne and build, we're going to assist you in running services to your development. That's on developers. There's numerous subdivisions around that have run services throughout their subdivision at cost to them, and then turn it over to the city when it's all completed. So I just, that kind of caught me, and then after the conversation we had, I kind of calmed down a little bit, but I can understand the reasons why now. There were a couple of question marks that I had with the agreement, in as much as we're supplying the material and the developer is supplying the labor. And when it comes to the installation part side of it from the developer, they are tendering out the contract to do the work. What safeguards are in place for us that the work is done properly, and once it's all said and done, and 2 to 3 years down the road, I believe it said 2 years in the agreement, what are the safeguards in place for us to go back to them? To either of you.
Steve?
Through your worship, to Councillor Elliott. So we do have a training program that we do, actually Darlene and Cassandra actually implemented on a case-by-case basis. So every water main project that we have, there is a training program to work with in Port Colborne. So that would be the first line to depict what happens, why it happens, and what should happen in certain circumstances. There's also an inspection part of this as well, where we would have someone on site for 10 hours a day overseeing the work to make sure it's built to our satisfaction as well. And on top of that, there is a 2-year warranty period, which is our typical standard warranty with the infrastructure projects of this magnitude.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just to follow up to that, if the contractor that installs it happens to not be around for a very long period of time after it, is the warranty put back on the developer so that the developer has to cover it? If the company that does the work ceases to exist, are we still covered?
Steve? Darlene?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in the agreement's with the developer. The agreement is not with the contractor. So the developer would be responsible if something failed in the 2-year warranty period to correct any deficiencies. So so it's not with the contractor, it's with the developer, the agreement.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Baggett?
I'm good, Mr. Mayor, thanks.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Beauregard?
Through your worship to either Ms. Sittard or the Director of Public Works. So there's a clause in here that says time shall be of the essence, and they give the contractor 30 working days to complete it. Is this a standard timeline for a project like this?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We actually discussed with the developer how long they thought it would take to do the water main. And he's actually hopeful to have it done in a shorter time frame. But we put that time frame in there so that to have protections for us, because we are covering the cost of the inspection. So we didn't want to have to cover inspection indefinitely if something went sideways and ended up taking longer than 30 working days. So there is provisions that they would have to cover. If it goes beyond the 30 working days, they have to cover the inspection costs. So that's why it's protecting our expenses as well.
When does that 30 days begin? Is it from the date they get the municipal consent permit?
No, the day, it's an engineering thing, so I may have to refer to the director. I think it's the day they break ground, is it not? Okay, thank you.
Okay. And is there any other ramifications from them doing this work? Like, is there going to be a water shut-off? Is there going to be anything that may affect surrounding properties?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this would be similar to any water main project. So in order to make the connections at King Street, they'll have to turn the water off to make the connections, but we'll follow all the notification processes that we do for any water main projects that we do, that the city themselves is doing. The only difference here is that the developer is providing the contractor to do the construction, but we're still overseeing it, and we'll make sure the processes are all followed so that people are notified.
Okay, do we know how many properties that might be?
There is currently only 2 properties on Neff Street. Okay. It could affect, depending where the valving is on King Street, it may affect some houses on King, but it would only be for the duration of the actual connection, so those are usually less than 8 hours. And there'll be lots of notification. We'll use our communications person to help us with that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Item 8.4, report number 2023-26, the Chief Administrative Officer, Economic Development and Tourism Division report 2023-26 be received. That the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and execute a funding agreement for the site readiness program with His Majesty the King in Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, and that the bylaw be authorizing entering into the agreement be approved. Councillor, if I could have Councillors Bruno and Aquilina move this. Councillor Aquilina.
Oh, for 8.4.
8.4, yes.
All my questions, right?
Everything's been answered? Okay. Anybody else have a question on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. 8.6 is done. Council, just in light of 8.8, I do apologize. 8.8, we have to change the motion to state that the mayor and acting city clerk be authorized to execute an amended agreement, which is the change, is the words amended agreement being added with ADR Chambers, Inc. for the purpose of providing services of an integrity commissioner. If I could have Councillors Danch and Elliott move that with those 2 words changed from the original motion that was presented. Is that any questions on that? It's just a clarification from our acting clerk. Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, acting clerk. Item 9.1. Is a letter from the Region of Niagara for the approval of the Niagara official plan. If I could have Councillors Aquilina and Bodner move that. Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through, I guess, Denise for planning. My question was, I thought that perhaps former regional councillor Butters had brought some concerns in regarding policy or protection regarding the aquifer in the official report, and so I was just wondering if that is included in the process.
Ms. Landry?
Thank you, through the mayor, to the councillor. Yes, I did a thorough scan of the region's official plan to confirm that HVA's highly vulnerable aquifers are addressed in the region's OP. They are mapped and identified, and there's specific policies that discuss protection and development around them and adjacent to them. I did reference it for you in an email, so you can see the specific policies just for future reference to assist you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Beauregard.
Through your worship to Ms. Landry. It says here in the report that regional plan staff will work with local area municipalities to determine how the Niagara official plan will be implemented given the legislative changes made under Bill 23. Have they reached out to you? Has there been any discussion as to how it will be implemented?
Through the mayor to the councillor, we meet monthly with the heads of planning across the region, and the region is keeping track of the municipalities in terms of us moving forward with conformity. We have not discussed in detail how each municipality is looking to absorb the region's official plan. That is something that all the municipalities are currently looking at in terms of how they're going to address that. But the region is keeping tabs right now on if we're proceeding with new official plan or official plan amendments to conform to their OP.
And through your worship, will you be providing updates to council as to any changes in process or anything involving the region and their official plan and how we're going to implement the OP as we move forward?
Yep, through the mayor to the councillor, most definitely I can bring an update the next meeting or the meeting after, either verbal or written, in terms of kind of our process for updating our official plan. Council did, thank you, approve in the budget money for us to proceed with revising our official plan to conform. And we are looking at bringing that or initiating that process soon. But I'm happy once more information comes out, especially in terms with the changes with the region and the planning responsibility, providing at least a verbal update to council.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions, all in favor? That's carried. Item 9.2. Again, a letter from the Niagara Regional for approval of the 2023 interim levy dates and amounts. I've got Councillor Bruno and Danch moving that. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Director of Corporate Services, Acting CAO this evening, Mr. Bowles. Mr. Bowles, for the public's notice on this, will people now be expecting that with the upload of transit to the region, that the cost for transit will be a line item like waste management is, or will it be in the regional levy portion of our taxes?
Mr. Bowles?
Through the mayor to the councillor and council, you will see, and for any public watching, you will see a new line on your tax bill that will directly identify the transit component. Exactly as the councillor said, it will be just like waste management.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any impact of what that may be? Is that on the average home in Port Colborne? And I don't know if that's been concluded at the regional level.
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor and council, and the mayor can correct me, but I believe the region is still working through their operating levy budget, and then I believe the transit budget gets reviewed next. So I think that still has to be tabled at the regional level to make it a comment on.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. And these are to receive, Council. Item 9.8 is a letter from the Office of the Warden for the County of Huron with a call to action to review the Cannabis Act. If I could have Councillors Bodner and Hoyle move that. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Because this will just be received if we don't talk about it, I'd like us to actually support this. We have talked about this, actually, the former planning director, Dan, has expressed our concerns many times to the government in reports that he's raised. And this is to do with odor, well, a number of things, but one of the things is odor control coming from people that grow medical marijuana. And often they can grow it for somebody else too, so there's a number of plants. Some councillors, I know I have, sat in people's living rooms that actually cannot use their beautiful back deck when the wind is blowing and it's the prevailing wind. When the marijuana is at a certain stage, you just can't stomach it out there. It's terrible. And there's no control required from the government at all, Health Canada in this case, I believe, to make people that grow medical marijuana put in filters that can stop this. And I know, Mr. Mayor, I think you sat in that same deck I'm talking about. This is a major problem. And something that's supposed to make people better should not make people sick in the neighboring house, you know, from this. It has never been worked out right. And any chance we get to express our concern on this, I think we should do it. So I'd like us to actually support this rather than just receive it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hoyle, you're fine with that, with the supporting of it?
When I read this, I'm sorry. Through you, the mayor. When I read this, I'm just trying to look at all the angles, and I've received some feedback, and yes, the stench and all that, and yes, there should be some kind of law out there to say yes, X filter would be a thing. So I think I'll support Ron's idea.
Okay, I just need, just to second it. And yeah, long way around to say yes. Thank you, I appreciate that. And Councillor Bonner, with regards to what you've said, yes, I have been to that neighborhood. And also, we continue to, when I served as chair of the Police Services Board, we continue to talk about this at the Canadian Association of Police Governance. So that's across Canada, and also our Zone 4, which is Niagara regions included with Hamilton, Brantford, Halton, Peel. Just trying to go around the loop. And a number of OPP detachments with municipalities. And we continue to talk about it there, and that those two organizations have sent information to the federal government with regards to this. So Haldeman, Norfolk, those are two other areas that we deal with. So yeah, supporting this is keeping in tune with what we've done here over the last number of years with regards to this issue. So thank you. Any further questions? This is to support, council. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bodnar. And our last item is 9.9. This is a letter from the town of Petrolia from the clerk operations clerk with regards to, I'll read this so you know what it is. Whereas in the province of Ontario, municipalities are responsible to conduct the election process on behalf of the school boards. And whereas an extensive amount of resources, time, and management to advertise, coordinate, and complete these trustee elections is placed on the municipality. And whereas municipalities do not receive any compensation or reimbursement for use of orchestration of the school board trustee elections, and the town of Petrolia, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of Petrolia requests that the staff forward this motion to the Honourable Stephen Lecce, Minister of Education, MPP Bob Bailey, Ontario Municipal Councils in the County of Lambton, requesting that school boards become responsible for conducting their own trustee elections, or at a minimum, municipalities be compensated by the school boards for, excuse me, for overseeing such trustee elections. Councillor Bodnar would like to move that, if I can Councillor Bagu, second to receive. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I came upon this and I really never gave it a thought, and I didn't know the answer. So through you to the deputy clerk, is this a strain on our municipality, or do we have election machines that we simply push a button and get it out and it doesn't cost us much money? Can you?
So I'm gonna go to Ms. Rubley, the acting city clerk, who's online.
Oh, all right, great.
You can't see her there, but she is online.
Okay.
Nicole, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Bodnar. So the municipality does have hard costs associated to running the school board election with the ballots. And we're fortunate enough here in Port Colborne that Fort Erie is responsible for accepting the nominations for the public and Catholic English school boards, and Welland is doing the French boards. So we don't have those administrative costs for Port Colborne. However, they do see substantial administrative costs in accepting those nominations and working with the school board trustees to ensure that they have all the information provided that they need to run their election campaign.
Councillor?
Okay, so poor Welland and poor Fort Erie get the brunt of the cost of doing this. So I guess on their behalf, I'd like to support this. You know, it's a small amount to us, but a big amount to them. So if actually the provincial government would come through with a little compensation to those municipalities, I don't think that'd be a bad idea. So I'd like to support this.
So I've got Councillor Bodnar is still going to move to support. Councillor Bagu, you're fine with that? Any further questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, we're done our items. There are no motions this evening. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none. There are no minutes of boards and committees. On to bylaws. We have bylaws 20.1 through to 20.6. If I could have Councillors Beauregard and Aquilina move that. Pardon? Oh, I apologize, page 2. 20.8, 1 to 8. Beauregard and Aquilina, if you could move those. Any questions on any of the bylaws? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. So that ends the open portion of our meeting. So I'll adjourn that portion, but we are still, because we recessed from in-camera, we are going back into in-camera for the following items. 21.1 Chief Administrative Office Report 2023-21 concerning a Merkel Road property pursuant to Municipal Act 2001 subsections 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. 21.2 Chief Administrative Office Report 2023-12 concerning Elm Catherine Street property pursuant to Municipal Act 2001 subsections 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And 21.3 Chief Administrative Office Report 2023-22 concerning King Street property pursuant to Municipal Act 2001 subsections 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Thank you for watching this evening, and we'll see you at our next meeting.